Lieutenant Governor. What do you think of your first debate?
Well, I thought it went great. Good crowd. Everybody's energetic. Lots of cheering. It was a good night.
You did attend the first debate. Are you going to do the third debate, or is this the only SCGOP debate you're going to attend?
I don't think we've made that decision yet.
And what made this one different from the first one for you to attend?
Well, you know, I always said that debates are kind of like a rite of passage, and I would do one or, you know, maybe do two, but this just happened to work with my schedule.
Lieutenant Governor, the primary is still a little more than a month away.
Mm-hmm.
Very cordial debate tonight, and many of the issues you all do agree upon. What is it going to take to separate yourself from the rest of the crowd before the primary?
Well, I already think I'm separated from the crowd. I mean, I've spent the majority of my life in business. I've stood with Donald Trump since the beginning. Definitely somebody, you know, nobody in there can say that. I've spent my entire life building a company, creating jobs and getting things done. And I've brought that same business know-how to my role as Lieutenant Governor. And, you know, I said it very plain in my closing statement. The one question people need to ask themselves is who would they hire to be the CEO of their company? Because basically what they're doing on June 9th is they're electing somebody to be the CEO of their state.
What do you think of Ron Ready, I think, pointing to himself when you made that line?
Well, you know, it was interesting. Like, you know, where you're sitting, Joe, it's kind of hard to hear and kind of see what's around you. And I was kind of looking at the audience, so I kind of couldn't hear everything Ron was saying. It was kind of quiet, and so it wasn't delivering down my way very much.
There are a lot of issues that face South Carolina. We've talked about education, we talked about abortion, we talked about affordability, about data centers and all. What do you feel is the greatest issue facing South Carolina right now?
Well, we need to eliminate state income tax. You know, I've traveled to all 46 counties. I've traveled it many times as Lieutenant Governor. But when I threw my hat in the ring to be governor, I said I would go to all 46 counties around the state and listen to people. And, you know, that's what everybody talks about. It's affordability. What's the best way to put money back in people's pockets is cut the state income tax. That becomes crucial. And let's face it, to do that, we're going to have to rein in government spending. Government spending is the #1 driver of inflation. And so, you know, leaning in on technology, you know, reining in government spending, and unleashing, you know, by getting rid of useless regulations, unleashing the power of business to do what they do best.
You mentioned eliminating state income tax. The governor signed the bill that phases in the income tax cut, or the income tax elimination.
Mm-hmm.
Is that law enough? How would you build upon it if it's not?
Well, I'm going to do what I did in business, right? I'm going to look at everything. I'm going to figure out, you know, where spending needs to be cut, because as I just said, you know, government spending is the #1 driver of inflation, and that's just basic economics. We need to leverage in on technology. We have to run more efficiently. The people ask me all the time, when you came from the business world, what was the #1 thing that stood out to you? And it was just how little technology we have in government. And if you want to really root out waste, fraud, and abuse, technology is how you're going to do it.
Well, you mentioned Donald Trump tonight. I want to
Yeah.
ask this of you too as well. He was mentioned at least 10 times tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Considering where things are now, the poll numbers and such, and war in Iran, and knowing that South Carolina, though, is a red state and all, how much of a factor is Donald Trump going to play in this election, and will you raise his name during this campaign very much?
Absolutely. Donald Trump will always be a factor. I mean, I'm very proud, you know, when Donald Trump first came down that golden escalator, I wasn't even in politics. I remember I've spent the majority of my life in business. And I backed him from day one because he was a businessman, because I was tired of career politicians, because I wanted somebody to understand what us businesses went through. And I think that's exactly what the people here in South Carolina, especially, and across the country, that's why they elected him. And there was this conflict going on in Iran, but I'm proud to stand with President Trump because he was the first president that had the backbone to stop what everybody else has been talking about. As long as I can remember, Iran has been yelling death to America. And you should believe people when they tell you they want to do something. And I'm grateful for President Trump to always put America first, to put American businesses first, to put American workers first. And so I'm proud to stand with him. I've never wavered. I'm the only one that stood on that stage. And everybody talks about Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. But go back to January of 23. I'm the only one that came down to Columbia that Saturday afternoon, canceled a trip that I had going with Republican Lieutenant Governors Association and RSLC, because nothing was more important to me than to get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris far away from the Oval Office as I could get. And that's why I've stood with President Trump. I've traveled for him, I've stumped for him, I've raised money for him, and I'll continue to be very proud of that.
As someone who stands beside President Trump, and you've been there throughout it all, I mean, as a practicing Catholic, how do you feel about his criticism of Pope Leo, most recently?
So I am a very devout Catholic, but you know what? I consider them two very different men with two very different agendas. President Trump's agenda is to keep the American people safe, and the Pope's agenda is to get all of our souls to heaven. And I can understand what both their agendas are, and I think everybody should think of it that way. I don't know why everybody thinks that they have these same goals in mind. President of the United States and Pope, the leader of the Catholic Church. Two completely different agendas.
But do you think the Pope is a loser and that he is soft on crime?
You know what? I do not think the Pope is a loser, but I don't get involved in the argument between them. I can respect both of them for what they do. I respect both of them for the goals that they have. All right, guys, thanks so much.